What do you feel are some of the biggest obstacles to change that you can identify as a result of your experiences in the field? And I think we could probably go on and on about a number of different kinds of change. By this question, I mean specifically institutional or economic or cultural kinds, and then we'll go on to, in a later question, to examine barriers within the population.
I think obstacles to the development of adult ed has been the lack of recognizing the potential. Throughout this last 20 years, or every time you hear the politics of it, that we have to train our young people to be ready to go to the workforce, and they talk about all the money that needs to be done and all the training and all the changes that have to be done in the K-12 program. But in reality, for the next 10 to 15 years of any time period, or at least the next first 5 to 10 years of almost any time period, it is the existing adult population that has to be retrained to take care of the workforce. And they just don't get it. That you're not going to wait till that 9th grader or that 10th grader gets out. It's these folks that have migrated or immigrated into this country and that are here, that have skills but cannot function because of the lack of literacy or because of a lack of being able to function within the society. And they are the ones that will be providing the workforce, the immediate workforce for the immediate future. And looking down the road and what's going to happen in the 9th grade curriculum or the high school curriculum is fine. But the impact of that is not going to be felt for 10 to 15 years after that student leaves the classroom. The impact of training the adults that are currently undertrained and needing work can be felt immediately. So that, of course, and that deals with funding, and it deals with the politics of education. Each time that there is a legislative session, you get a new group of folks that think that they have come up with the answers that some of us who have been in the business have seen come and go, come and go, and come and go. It's like a new kid in school, and every kid comes to school in the 6th grade and he thinks that the mischief that he's going to get into is the first time that teacher has seen that mischief. But the teacher has seen it for 20 years prior to that and is ready for it. Unfortunately, when we've dealt with the politics of the state and primarily the state, we've not been astute. We've not been political players, and consequently not been able to change things.
This is a very cogent argument. So it's a lack of political clout?
A lack of political clout over the years, that was barriers. I think since that point in time and today more so, what with, folks were much more aware of the adult program, much more aware, because the literacy program now is not something that's happening here in Hillsborough County and the Office of Adult Education. And at the national level, you got eminent folks such as Barbara Bush talking about the home and literacy and reading to your children. It's become a national,
Becoming.
Well, I think it's the action is following the perception. The perception is that we have a huge disparity problem in terms of educational opportunities for adults, particularly those that are migrated and have been here and need to advance themselves. And for many young folks who are leaving school much older, one of the changes that you asked earlier was, what changes had you seen? When I first started this thing, most of my students were adults, 35, 40, 45, 50-year-old folks. Today, the adult student is that kid is dropping out of school somewhere between, 18 or 16 and 25. That's a whole new dynamic there in terms of the number of folks and the adults that we used to serve in the past are, they're not there necessarily. And that's been a dichotomy. Some of these young folks coming into the same atmosphere as some of the older students, there were conflicts there. And at a point in time, we thought that a lot of the older folks were being driven out because of the youth that was coming in. There was no compatibility in terms of interest and demeanor in the classrooms and those kinds of things. But I think adult ed has grown with all of that.
Next question. Okay, we've talked about some of the institutional and political barriers to adult literacy. What about the barriers within the potential population of adult learners who could be served? Are there any characteristics or obstacles that need to be considered in planning and implementing programs to reach those learners?
Yeah, absolutely. And probably one of the major problems that we had early on was availability of space, appropriate space, and close to the clients that you wanted to serve. Transportation is what I'm getting at. In a county such as ours, if you lived in the inner city, you might be able to catch a bus or get a friend to take you to the nearest adult center, whatever that might be. But if you lived outside of the community, the rural areas, chances are of being able to access educational classes were nil, particularly when there was not the technology and the internet focus that we have today. So transportation was one, and one of the things that I think had to be done and has to be planned is that when you're going to serve the community, it's important that administrator know that community and survey that community for whatever the needs are that they might can be found there. And then secondly, to make every effort to get the services to the client where they are. I think that's when I said earlier that the coordination and collaboration that I was involved in. We went to every church, every center, every open space, every workforce that would take us, and we established classes in and at those sites so that people could get out of work, go in the afternoons, or come in early and have classes, go to church on Wednesdays and go to class or whatever. So we took the classes to them, and then, when I said earlier, you said some of the achievement, I mean, the fact that we started the learning centers that we did at the malls in Tampa Bay Mall and East Lake Square Mall, in the Department of Labor, at San Jose Mission, at the Kimmons Center. We went where the people were and established intensive learning centers there, so that we were viable in the community, and we became something that people leaned on. And without that kind of an effort, we would never have reached the number of folks that we had. I think additionally, one of the barriers that we have, and particularly in Hillsborough County, is that there are an enormous number of folks who have limited English proficiency, and the language is a barrier. And when the language is a barrier, there is a barrier in terms of being able to make progress economically, and to perhaps raise your child, your children, to the best degree possible. So being able to provide these folks an opportunity to in some cases become citizens, in other cases just to learn the language to get a better job. So that's another, transportation, language barriers, and obviously child care, which really brought in the move that we were very highly involved in, and that was the family literacy program, where we started talking in terms of if we were going to reach the folks that we needed to reach, particularly some of the at-risk families, that we needed to provide an opportunity for young folks who were having children but had no way of, or anyone to keep those children, where they could come to school with their kids and have children doing something that was appropriate, developmentally appropriate, while the parents were doing something in terms of academics and at the same time learning techniques in terms of how to raise a responsible child. So the family literacy movement, which started, maybe 10, 15 years ago in reality, has been and that brought us the Even Start program and those kinds of programs where parents and kids come to school together.